So this chapter starts off with Asta figuratively and literally closing the gap between him and Lucifero. He makes his way closer to Lucifero so he can go ahead and try to get some slices off and slice Lucifero into pieces. In this chapter, he actually just slices Lucifero around, and it seems like he did actually close that gap a lot. Whenever he goes into his Devil Union mode, like this perfected form, or this more perfect form, he closes the gap so much. And it's interesting to see exactly how powerful this form is, because we saw in the past Asta sliced off a piece of Lucifero's horn, but now he's just making a lot of slices on Lucifero. But it's not that one-sided, as Lucifero does actually get some hits in too. Lucifero hits Asta using his gravity to lift up some debris, and it directly hits Asta. This right here then transitions into a flashback with Lucida and Libe. And Lucida says, I had a son. He should be around the same age as you, Libe. I was so thankful to see he was born healthy. And Libe is listening to this story. This story is obviously about Asta. So this is flowing into Asta. Asta is getting this information. And this is kind of like an emotional overload. Kind of like whenever you think of doing something for somebody, and it kind of gives you extra motivation to accomplish that task. That's basically what's happening here. Asta's figuring out all of the past of Libe and Lucida, his mother, and it's kind of making him want to do even better, because Asta's a person that likes to help others, and he sees that Lucida wasn't in the best position, so he wants to make good on Libe and Lucida by defeating Lucifero, considering he now knows that Lucifero is the reason that Lucida actually passed away, and that was his mother. So obviously that's gonna make him feel some type of way, especially since it was more of a mother to Libe. But they're both brothers at the end of the day, so they live by that. It's gonna be interesting to see going forward, because right now they really don't have that much time to reminisce or talk about being brothers, but that's something they're probably gonna really touch on, maybe even in the next chapter. They might talk about it, be like, what, why didn't you ever tell me we were brothers, or something like that. That'll be cool to see, maybe a little gag moment played off like that. But back into this fight, this gives Asta the motivation he needs to kind of reach the next level and defeat Lucifero. Apparently it flashes back to the fight, and Lucifero closes in on Asta, ready to do some damage, and then it flashes right back. So this chapter right here flashes between the present and the past, as these memories are flowing into Asta. And it flashes back to another memory. And Lucida says in this memory, but nonetheless, if I had stayed at his side, I would have ended up stealing his life force. And so I left him. I am unfit to be a mother. And Libe just looks at her, kind of not really sure what to say. At this point, Libe is really young, and he probably doesn't believe that she's unfit to be a mother, because Lucida is the closest thing to a mother that Libe has ever had. So for her to say that she feels unfit to be a mother, that probably, mixes up some emotions within a young Libe. Flashback to the fight, Lucifero gets another hit, then it flashes back to the memories. Lucida says, I will never be by his side. I will never hold him in my arms. I will never get to see him again. But tomorrow and the day after, always and forever, I will love him. It's in this moment right here, when Asta has this look on his face, that it reminds Lucifero of Lucida. Lucifero says, that worthless girl who got in my way, you're her child. And Asta proceeds to slice off another piece of Lucifero's horn. That's got to be a little bit embarrassing for Lucifero. I mean, Asta early on got a little small chop of Lucifero's horn, but now he's just slicing it all up. I mean, he's slicing it all into pieces. Lucifero is honestly getting embarrassed out here. Lucifero tries to throw a punch at Asta, but Asta proceeds to easily slice off his arm like it's butter. Slices clean through his arm, which is interesting, because this showcases the strength that Asta now has. If you guys remember, Lucifero put up one finger, and it was able to stop Asta's blade in its tracks. But now Asta is slicing through Lucifero's arm with ease. He takes Lucifero's arm completely off. Now the look on Lucifero's face to me is really blank. He doesn't have any like visual cues as to say whether he's angry, sad, scared. He doesn't have anything like that. He just gets sliced directly in half, and it just basically ends like that. He doesn't have any last words in this chapter after being slashed in half. nothing like that. It's going to be interesting to see if this is the end of Lucifero. It seems like Lucifero has been defeated here, but you never know. A plot twist may be in the works. You really have to wait to see if a plot twist unfolds. But going off of this chapter right here, Lucifero has been defeated, at least temporarily. You know, maybe he has some other type of body in the underworld, since this is a manifestation of him in the real world. So this may not be the end of him. Or perhaps if the manifestation right here is destroyed, his entire essence is destroyed, and we don't have to worry about seeing him ever again, because Asta took care of the job. Getting the job done, Asta and Libe separate. They're no longer in union mode because they did only have 5 seconds. So they're going to be extremely exhausted. It's going to be interesting to see how their injuries are handled. Like, did Devil Union mode allow them to withstand some of these attacks a little bit better? Because whenever Asta wasn't in Devil Union mode, we could see he was really getting messed up by Lucifero's punches, and he did get hit a lot lately. But he was in his Devil Union mode perfected form, or his furtherance of that form. So it's going to be interesting to see if he still sustained that much damage as before, or if his defense increased whenever he was in this form as well, because his speed was doing really well. It seems like he was just speeding by and just hitting Lucifero with whatever he wanted to, because whenever he wasn't in this form, he was a little bit too slow, like, because he just barely got like the tip of Lucifero's horn, but in this he just completely sliced it off. So the last one left standing in this chapter is Asta and Libe, and they have some final words for Lucifero. They say, while you're crawling on the ground, we're gonna live and be happy. So that's pretty cool right there. They're standing, looking their enemy directly in the face and telling them to crawl on the ground, because they do not stand for the kind of violence that Lucifero was calling for. Now this does, you know, pose some questions, like, all right, so now we have Lucida fully telling us about Asta and kind of what she had to go through. She had to give Asta up, but somebody had to have, you know, helped her conceive Asta. So, you know, basically Asta's father. She gave Asta up to the church. You know, he basically was raised by father and sister Lily, and we don't really know anything about his father. Like, she doesn't mention his father, so that kind of like raises some questions, because if you think about it, the person who conceived Asta with Lucida must have not been affected by the curse, unless Lucida didn't have the curse at that time. You know, that's a possibility, but we don't know that. So I mean, it's just questions about that, and Asta could have been turned over to his father. So how did Asta come to be? Does Asta has to have a father, right? Would Asta's father maybe be a devil, since Asta can, you know, utilize a 5-leaf grimoire? Because I don't believe that just anybody can wield a 5-leaf grimoire. Those grimoires have devil connections, so maybe that's part of the reason. Or we're just gonna have to wait and see. But that's some interesting questions that, you know, we should think about. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and leave it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. As always, it's been your boy NeoXO, and